Alright, so here we are on the DR650. I think this video is probably going to end up being a little ride along up here in Northwest Arkansas. Probably talk a little bit about this bike. I might compare it to the TW200 since that's really the only other dual sport that I've ridden. It's just going to be a nice little scenic video, hopefully. It's a little warmer out than it has been. It's about 53 or so, which is a little nicer. I could go a little farther before my fingers turn into dead fingertips from like frostbite, basically. But yeah, we're just right outside Fayetteville area right now. Just kind of cruising along. Gonna kind of go towards, not really up in the Ozarks, but in that area. I don't know if we're gonna get very much elevation. We might. I don't know. Just gonna kind of go a direction and hope for the best. So a little bit about this bike. This is a stock 2012 DR650. Came out in '96 was really the last time this model was really updated with any meaningful change. They've done a few things since then, like I think around 2015 or 2016, they fixed some things that could cause some catastrophic errors on this bike. The neutral sending unit screw and the transmission can back out on the earlier models, and that will tear up your clutch basket area pretty good. Pretty little decent thing to get fixed. I don't know why it took them so long to do it. This bike hasn't had any of that done. This has the I haven't taken it apart and fixed that, and neither had the previous owner. So hopefully that we don't have to worry about that. It doesn't happen to everyone, but if it does happen to you, it's not good. But usually there's a little warning sign. The neutral light up here will start flashing while you're in gear, and if that starts happening, you just want to, shut off the bike. Call a tow truck. If it starts doing that, yeah, I wouldn't risk driving it, because you don't want that screw backing out, tearing stuff up in there. Another thing, man, this road has been washed out. Another thing that they fixed on this is the output shaft, something. The front sprocket, basically the seal behind the front sprocket would back out, dump your oil out. I think they fixed that around the same years. I'm not really sure on that one. But they have a little aftermarket. It's like $5. Actually, it's not even aftermarket. I think Suzuki sells them now that they started putting them on the new models. You can buy a little counter shaft seal retainer. That's what it is, and slap it on there. I don't think it takes too long, and you don't have to worry about potentially dumping all your oil out anymore, which is not a bad thing to not have to worry about as far as worried about things go. So yeah, it's nice out today. Everyone's out here running around. I'm not too far outside of town right now, so that's why there's a lot of people. A big college town, you're gonna have people running around on any nice day. But hopefully we'll get a little further out in the wilderness. Man, I need some new tires on this thing. This thing is a little slippery in some mud. This front tire really needs to be replaced on this. It's the stock trail wing tire. They've got like 10,100 miles on it. It's past due, I will admit. But I usually stick to dirt roads like this if I can. And that's what I got this bike for. This is a nice little dirt road adventure bike that you can take on some pretty gnarly trails if you're really feeling frisky. Because I mean, this thing, you can take this thing, I won't say anywhere the TW will go, but you probably could. It would just require a lot more effort. This could go on the interstate, which the TW, I wouldn't look at an interstate on the TW. Like this thing will bog down in 5th gear until you're going over like 55 miles an hour. TW is screaming at 55 miles an hour. Which I like this bike for up in this area, because not everything is super close. Well, I mean, I guess like this road's pretty close, and it connects to a bunch of other cool roads like this. So It's not super close. It's just a random dog chasing me. There's a lot of people out on this road. I've never seen this many people out. Gotta be nice to people that let you pass them. Yeah, but I've taken this on some OHV trails, like ATV trails out the Ozark Mountains. The official ones, not just random ones that people cut out there. But like the official ones, so they're legal trails and everything. It does all right. It is 366 pounds, and it's got some pretty soft stock suspension. But it'll get the job done. You might want to take a buddy, because there's a few times where I thought I was going down a cliff or down a hill. Thankfully, this thing surprises me. You just, when in doubt, throttle out. Seems to save a lot of situations that could go bad. And this thing's got power for sure. This thing's got a lot of torque. It's like 40 pound-feet of torque and 43 horsepower. And it makes it pretty low in the RPM range. It's a big old single-cylinder engine. Actually did the math. We had 8 of these cylinders in a V8 engine configuration. I'm pretty sure it'd be bigger than the 5.0 in the Mustang on displacement. This is a very large cylinder, even though you only get one. Oh, people are walking. Alright. Oh yeah, another thing about this engine. It's super easy to work on this bike. This thing's got like I said, it's got a big old single cylinder. It's air cooled, or air/oil cooled. It's got a oil cooler up there. I don't know if y'all saw it. But apparently if you bust that line, go to that oil cooler or bust the oil cooler, there's a little bypass you can put on there, and it doesn't even overheat when you route out the oil cooler. So I guess this thing's pretty over-engineered in that regard. But this thing's super easy to work on. Like I said, it's basically like a big TW200 engine with an extra valve per side and an extra spark plug and an oil cooler. And that's the simplest engine to work on that I've seen as a TW. Like that thing, it's all right there. You pop the valve covers off, adjust the valves. Nothing to it. This is basically the same except for these 2 valves per side of the engine. You got 2 exhaust valves and 2 intake valves. Don't know if that's more efficient. I don't know why Suzuki chose to do it like that, but that's how it is on this bike. It's also got 2 spark plugs. I don't know. I guess that's more efficient. I mean, if there's excess fuel it didn't burn off or something, I guess the second one will ignite it. I don't really know. But it gets about 125 miles to a tank before reserve. I've gotten 130 once, and I haven't gotten it again. Usually 120 is pretty safe, so in between there, 125. But you don't want to be out in the middle of nowhere and then hit reserve. That's a recipe for a bad time. Just cruising around here. If you're gonna take this thing on some longer trips, I might get some wind protection as well. Well, depending on the weather, I guess. If it's cold out, you're probably going to want some kind of little fairing. This one kicks the air up to about mid-chest. So underneath that, it's pretty well protected. But, I mean, it's really not much of a fairing. It's a little headlight cover, basically. But they make pretty tall windscreens for these. They make, like, wild rally windscreens and stuff. I personally think they look a little weird. But they get the job done, they work, they're just not very aesthetically pleasing, in my opinion. But honestly, this whole bike isn't really aesthetically pleasing, in my opinion. It's very utilitarian looking. Man, we were just cruising along 25. I really think this would be a good do-it-all beginner bike as well. Because it can do interstate, it's fun around town. You can do dirt, you can do street. It's very versatile. It opens up a lot of things to you. And as a new rider, you're not quite sure if you want to maybe do dual sporting or adventure biking or strictly street biking. This would be a good entry into that, because you can do whichever, and you can be like, yeah, I like this more than that, or I hate off-road, I never want to go off-road again. I mean, this thing will do road all day, and once you get tired of it, sell it, get a road bike. But it keeps you from having to buy something like a TW, which is basically only good off-road, or something like a cruiser, and then find out that you like off-roading. You're not going to take many cruisers off-road. There are some people that go on Gold Wings. I saw a video of a Gold Wing off-road. Guy's a little crazy. But this thing will cruise. You could never touch dirt on this thing, and I mean, it would still be a good life on this bike. It doesn't feel like you're really revving it too much, because it's got, that torque is really low on this thing. It comes on. It's got enough power to do anything legally. I mean, probably top speed. I think the top speed is actually rated as like 110 on this. I would not go 110 on this bike. It gets a little wobbly at 80 or so, depending on what tires you have on here, I've heard. I've only had this thing up to 80 just because I was like, I wonder how fast I can go on this. And that was about when I was like, yeah, that's about as fast as I want to go on this. So I guess if you live somewhere where the traffic usually runs around 80, I would say this is still going to work out for you. But it still could get away from a beginner. If you whiskey throttle this thing, it can still sit you down on the ground, sit you on your butt. I can't say the same about the TW. You whiskey throttle the TW, not much changes. It kind of goes a little faster, maybe it jolts a little bit. This road was gravel until like last year, and they repaved it, or I guess paved it for the first time. Wasn't really happy about that. They're paving all the cool gravel roads out here. At least the ones that are nearby. You can still go out in the actual national forest up here. And there's all kinds of forest gravel roads around there. But not everyone has the time to go that far away on one of these. Because I'm usually not taking highways, I'm taking dirt. And it makes trips a little bit longer when you take dirt everywhere. But I usually don't go out with a destination in mind either. I usually just kind of pick a direction and head out. It usually doesn't let me down unless I'm going towards Oklahoma, and that lets me down pretty much every other time. It gets flat pretty quickly that direction. But I guess if you like flat, straight roads, Oklahoma's the place. There's snow over there. That's cool, I guess. Cold, actually. Man, we are really cruising along here. Doing 20 indicated, so that's probably, what, 17 miles an hour? I got a Shinko 244 in the back of this, 510 size. I like it a lot. A lot of people say they don't last very long. I've got about 5,000 miles on this one, maybe a little more actually. And it's still got some life in it. I do think I've been on dirt roads more often than street, but they still got some life in them, which is pretty impressive, I'd say, for a 50/50 dual sport tire. They don't look anywhere near like they did. They're not rounded as much. They're a little more squared off, but you can really lean this thing over in corners, so you can wear it pretty evenly all across it, other than the very, very edges of it, which still kind of have some big blocks on them. Another tire like this is the Kenda K270, I think is what it is. And a lot of people like them as well. But they apparently I think people say they're better off-road, just a smidge, because I mean they basically look like the same tire. But the side lugs on them are they're not as stiff as this one. And so in corners, apparently it can get a little loose feeling in the rear, or I guess even in the front, if you have it on the front. A lot of people don't run the Shinko 244s on the front of these. I don't know why. I was kind of looking into that for this to replace this trailing tire I got up here. A lot of people don't really like them up there. They run a combination of a Shinko on the rear and then something else on the front. It really just depends on how they're feeling, I guess. And this guy is speeding now and he's going across the line. I don't know what this guy's doing. He's taking race car lines. We're still recording. We're still good. Hopefully the audio is working. I spent like an hour and a half trying to rig up a microphone to work on this in my helmet here, because my last video I just used my Galaxy buds with the mic on them, had them stuck in my ears. Didn't sound the best. It sounded okay. These guys stopping. But it worked. I guess with TW doesn't go quite fast enough to warrant or to make a lot of wind noise. I wonder what they're doing to this. They just paved this because this was gravel. And they're already doing something else to it. We're clutch out first gear right now. That's how low first gear I was in this. Probably wouldn't go much slower than that because that was about as slow as I'd go before the engine probably stalled. But you can creep around on this thing to an extent. About, what, 10 miles an hour? Something like that. Nothing like a TW where your like clutches out at 1 mile an hour. Alright, we're gonna stop it, I guess. Could just go over the ditch and go farting along up there, I guess. I think I kind of messed up. I got a tinted reflective visor on. The sun's kind of going down. Alright, out of the work zone. Hopefully this guy doesn't go left up here, because I think we're going to be headed left. And go to another little dirt road that follows a river, or creek. I don't know what you'd call it. I don't know where they draw the line on a river versus a creek. Like, how big does it have to be? We just gotta pick a speed and keep at it, though. There you go. Usually I don't see many people out here, but it's, yeah, like I said, it's a pretty nice day considering it's January, like 15th or something like that. It's been in the 20s and 30s. I've been riding in the 20s and 30s, not very far, because it gets pretty dadgum cold. I don't have any heated grips or gloves or anything. My fingertips, even on these are decently thick little winter gloves. But even in these, my fingertips will get numb and they'll hurt after like 15 miles. Well, he is going left. And so it says 35. We're doing about 25. That's not bad. 10 under for the old Mazda man. Can't complain, I guess. It's nice and scenic out here at least. And he is riding them brakes. This thing has a nice, well, in my opinion, it has a nice decel pop to it when you're off the throttle. A lot of people don't like decel pop. I don't really know why, because I've always thought it's pretty nice. I guess he's going over there. Yeah, okay. I don't know what that's about. No turn signals, so I don't. Oh, he's getting out. I don't know what he's doing. Okay, yeah, but I like the decel pop on this bike. A lot of people don't like decel pop on anything. Some gravel in the corner here. That's always nice to see. But I like it on this bike. It sounds nice. This bike has a nice throaty sound to it as well. Especially compared to the TW. If you had these running next to each other, the TW sounds like... It's kind of ridiculous. It's got a nice exhaust on it, don't get me wrong. I like the sound of the TW, but you can definitely tell it's got a tiny engine in it next to this thing. This thing's deep and throaty, and it thumps. It basically sounds like half of a Harley engine, half of a V-twin engine, thumping away. TW isn't quite to that level. There's a lot of gravel on the roads today. I don't think it's rained recently either. Yeah, you can cruise around on this bike, because that torque is really low on this thing, so, or it's not low, but it comes on low in the RPM range. I'm assuming there's no tachometer on this thing, but it comes on pretty low. You can cruise around without having this thing sit close to redline all day long, like some of those smaller dual sports, like the 250s and stuff. You might have to rev them a bit higher to stay going at a decent speed. But this thing, I wouldn't say pop it to fifth unless you're going over 55, but pop it fourth or something. Cruise all day. It's low in the RPM. It sounds like you're not really doing any damage. Of course, you're not usually doing damage anyways on like the TW when you're up in the RPMs, but it just doesn't sound good. It sounds like you're hurting the engine. It's nice out here. If you live in Northwest Arkansas and you don't have an off-road vehicle, I would say dual sport, but I'll widen it up to off-road vehicle or something that could go off-road. You need to get something because it's insane the amount of cool mountain roads up here. And if you get something like this, you can also do trails on it. But if you're just going to be doing trails, I might get something a little lighter than this one. I do think out of the 650 class dual sports, like the KLR 650 and the Honda XR 650, I think this is probably the best, in my opinion. People don't really talk about them as much over here like they do in Australia. They love these bikes in Australia. It's kind of funny watching them on YouTube. They always say like the DR, because they say R like AHH, DR. But it's pretty funny. They love it over there. I don't know why we don't love them over here as much, because I think it's a true 50-50 dual sport in the sense of street time and dirt time. I think it's right in the middle. A KLR is a lot heavier, and I'd say it's probably more street focused, and it's got more bearings you can brake when you drop it, depending on the generation of them. And an XR 650, I think, is just too much of a dirt bike, and it's got an insane seat height on it as well. This one actually, the seat height on this is pretty good, I think. I'm about 6 foot. I can flat foot it, probably knees bent a little bit, because it does have pretty soft suspension. That sag's pretty good. But the seat height isn't really bad on this one at all, and I like a decently low seat height, just because if I'm on a trail that this bike might be a little big for, if I start going over, I like to be able to get a foot down and get a lot of leverage underneath it. And something like the Honda, you would have a lot more, you'd be leaning a lot more before you were able to get your foot down. So then you'd have more weight sitting on your foot. I'm gonna go right down here. And this is the longest I've been able to drive in like the past month before my fingers start to freeze. They're not even really cold right now. I'm pretty impressed. There's some river and fields over there. I'm trying to remember where this road comes out. Not 100% sure. Might do a little montage here. Might just stop talking and let the music play. Looks like we're kind of riding into the sun here. Couldn't really see. The dog just appeared in the middle of the road like that. I did say earlier that this tire's got some life left in it. It's feeling a little slick today. I've never felt it like this. And it's not really that muddy on this road, so maybe it's got less life in it than I thought. And I wish the sun wasn't directly in front of me though. I waited a little while to let it warm up a little more. Waited until about 2 to come out here. Yeah, that rear tire is getting slippery on me. I might need to get that thing replaced sooner than I thought. Usually you kind of have to you have to goose it a little bit in the corners to get the rear end to slide out, but it's kind of doing it by itself now. Dump truck. I hope they're not repaving this road. Or paving it. It's not ever been paved that I know of. He's taking up the whole thing. The whole shebang. Northwest Arkansas is, I think it's kind of slept on as far as dual sporting goes. Because there's all kinds of roads like this out in the hills. There's a river over there. And there's just some awesome roads like this. And then there's all kinds of trails out here. From legal trails to like questionable trails. Personally, I don't usually go on questionable trails just because I don't want to get yelled at or shot at by an angry farmer. There's some rural areas around here where I could see a farmer coming out with a shotgun, and I don't really want to experience that. But I mean, there's all kinds of places to ride these things up here, or you can just ride them on the street if you really want to. I think it's an awesome area up here. Very scenic. You don't have to go far to get some awesome scenery. This guy's gonna slow down, pass him. It's not looking likely.